Hey guys, welcome back to the OG of the HRC Way news. They ain't telling ya. Later today, I have a really good girlfriend who is a conservative, but mind you, don't want to miss this one. We have an open and great conversation about immigration in our country from a liberal and a conservative point of view. And hey, we actually found some common ground, so you don't want to miss that. Let's get into the quick news real quick. Actually, not a whole lot of it, so here we go. Parts of an airplane fell from the sky in Colorado the other day. I believe it was one of the engines. Thankfully, no one was harmed, and the plane landed safely. So that was an interesting story, not something you see every day. President Biden recently visited Bob Dole after his lung cancer diagnosis. Bob Dole is 91 and announced that he has stage 4 lung cancer. Good old Senator Manchin has announced that he will vote no on OMB director nominee Neera Tanden, which has set off a wavelength. President Biden has said he will not get a new OMB director nominee. He's going to stick with Neera. I don't know how we're going to get the votes, but I pray to God that we do. President Biden also re-entered the Paris Climate Accord, meaning we are back in the Paris Accord deal. So fingers crossed it all works out. Newsmax, which is the Fox News 2.0, literally ran in a story attacking Champ Biden. Now, Champ Biden is their 12-year-old German Shepherd. He said that the dog looked like he needed a bath and a comb. This is not a fake news story, guys. It was genuinely a news story on Newsmax attacking a 12-year-old dog. Okay. Merrick Garland finally is getting his Senate hearing for Attorney General. It is going to start Monday. He has already released his opening statement. So Merrick Garland finally, after all these years, is going to be heard in front of the Senate. Coca-Cola donated 6 18-wheeler trucks to residents in Waco, Texas that was filled with water because Texas is obviously still having issues with water because of the winter storm. An entire school board in California had to resign after they were caught on a hot mic in a Zoom meeting, basically to get talking and running their mouth about parents and, how parents are horrible and they only want to use teachers as babysitters. And so, yeah, that was an oops moment. And they all resigned, every single member. The GOP Arkansas governor announced today that he will not support Trump in 2024 if Trump decides to run. That's interesting because that's a mighty red state. Kim and Kanye have officially filed for divorce. Thank you, God. Okay, and to go back to the Arkansas governor, don't get too excited about that because there is a new poll that comes out that said that almost half of all Republicans in the poll would join a brand new Trump party. So there is that. We'll see where that lands in 2024. Who knows? All right, guys, let's get into the great conversation with my friend Dena. All right, guys, welcome back. So I just want to say I have a really good girlfriend here today, Dena, and I am very excited she's here. And the reason that I invited her, and I thought of her instantly when I thought it brought back the news they ain't telling you, is because she is a conservative. You know, I'm saying that, right?
No problem.
I don't like being called liberal because I think it's like a dirty word now. It's got associated with dirty things. So I always ask people. I don't want to assume anything. But what I love is that I'm a liberal, even though I hate that word, and you're a conservative, and we're very much able to have adult conversations about politics and be bipartisan and all that jazz. So I had told you I was going to give you a topic, and the funny thing is I thought initially, I want her to talk about Israel because so many people, like myself, don't have an understanding or a concept of the importance of Israel. And then we get put into a box of well, then you're anti-Israel when it's really, we don't understand the importance of Israel. But then I was like, am I really going to ask the Jewish girl to explain Israel to me? So maybe next time you can explain Israel. A follow-up with Israel. But then I thought you and I went to Disneyland and we had an amazing conversation about immigration. And I just thought right now it couldn't work out any more perfect. President Biden has announced that he wants to reform immigration like every president always says. So I thought let's talk about immigration, and let's go there from a conservative and a liberal point of view and see what we come up with, because I believe in bipartisanship, and I'm a big believer of the middle because I believe our country functions best when we come to the middle. So that's what we are. So let's start off. Like I said, President Biden has announced that he has this plan to take on immigration. It's very vague because he obviously is going to be working with Congress, or you think. Now, a backstory, we have not accomplished great immigration reform since 1986 under President Reagan with the amnesty and all of that. H.W. Bush came in 90 and reformed it a little bit, and it literally hasn't been touched since. So then it turned into the bipartisan part of immigration left the building, and it's turned into this massively partisan issue. And under W's era, he worked with Pelosi. He had an immigration reform package, and they couldn't get it on the floor. And then under Obama, everything just fell apart. 2013, he had a whole package. It fell apart. Couldn't get the votes. What's interesting about Reagan, to go back, is he passed the amnesty bill with a Democrat Congress. And he was able to do that bipartisanly with 61 votes, I believe, and he was able to get it done. So those days are gone. And here we are. President Biden is once again saying, let's do immigration reform. Have you read or heard his ideas of what he wants to do?
I have. I did some reading on it. It's interesting how you said, it's very vague, because that was the one thing of all my reading, trying to find different articles from whitehouse.gov, all of that. And I found, this is so vague. I don't even know what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to form an opinion when you really don't have the fine points.
Right.
You hear amnesty, path to citizenship. Okay.
The token words
exactly.
that they say all the time.
What does that mean, in fact?
Right, exactly. So I know that in his plan, he had said, I've seen early drafts of the plan, the actual bill they're going to work on in Congress. And their hope is for the path to citizenship, because that's always something they throw out, right? Right now, the waiting list is astronomical. It's 7 to 10 years or something crazy if you come from the south of the border, definitely. So his goal is to speed that process up, but they don't have any details on how they're going to accomplish that. I don't know if he's going to start a whole new cabinet. You know what I mean? For immigrant. I don't know what he's going to do, but I'm the same way, that they're still trying to figure out. And all I keep thinking is, we've been dealing with this since 1986. And we can't seem to come up with something that solves that. Okay, for example, you and I had talked about, there's a lot of people who've been here. The average person who's been here from south of the border is 7 to 10 years they've been here at least, right? And they're working and they're productive and they're maids and they're nannies and they're, what are we going to do with these people? Why is it we can't get out the bad people, and then we can deal with the hardworking, that we all see everywhere, selling the fruit, like I said, maids, nannies. So what is your take on that? Because that was Obama's big thing, right? He's actually the deporter in chief. That's what they call him. He's deported more. People don't know this, but he deported 3 million people in his 8-year run, 1.5 million in his first 4 years. Trump only deported 800,000 in his first 4 years. So, but Obama's big thing was always, I'm getting out the bad guys. I'm getting out the bad guys. So what is your take on all of that? Getting out the bad guys versus, the good, you know what I mean? The ones who are working, the maids and the nannies, and who are raising our children and cleaning our homes and working so hard,
Right. I mean, I come into contact with that group of people who have come over here illegally. And I understand, of course, why they're coming over illegally. I mean, they're looking for the economic opportunities. They're living in corrupt government. So I have an appreciation for why they come over. And so their, value system comes over whole. They're hardworking, genuine people. They're not looking, yes, they're quote unquote criminals because they've broken the law by coming over illegally, but they're not criminals at heart.
Right.
And I believe they do have a right, to at least have the opportunity to be able to come here and have, legal status, and if they, perhaps citizenship, if that's what they want.
Right.
I think obviously there needs to be so much more vetting. The criminals have to go, and I don't mean the criminals that just are criminal because they crossed over the border. I mean the
Right.
criminals that are engaged in drug trafficking,
Right.
human trafficking, other crimes,
Right.
murder, DUIs, all of that. And I think there should be very low tolerance for once crimes have been committed like
Right.
that.
Right. Do you think that should be, because even though I'm a Democrat, I know that the federal government struggles when they have a big project. They just struggle. Like you look at the VA, it's a disaster. You look at how Obamacare, what it's turned into, it's a disaster, right? So many of these programs, student loans, the federal government owns 92% of the student loans, and it's a disaster. So they don't have the best track record. So do you think that each state then should have their own criteria, like states' rights, basically, how it is with all things with states' rights.
So I do, it's really tricky. The problem with, I in theory, like my kind of conservative values goes to states' rights.
Of course, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
we don't need big government.
Yeah.
The problem with states' rights, and we see this in a lot of areas, is when there isn't some measure of consistency between the states, then you end up in a lot of, gray area. You've got, fleeing from one state to the other in the sense of trying to utilize the more lenient states' laws.
Like with guns. They cross over and it's more lenient there.
Right.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
we saw the whole issue even with the whole election just now, the chaos because there isn't like a single standard.
Yeah, I know.
That's a whole separate issue to get into. But I'm saying, you can see how that would cause a problem. But I do think that, in theory, I think it should be states' rights. I actually think probably if they can, I don't know how, obviously, we're not here to figure out the answers, but practically speaking, I think that just the states being in charge of things like that, it's just going to be more functioning. I think we'll see better results from it.
Right. What is interesting, though, is what the federal government has done correct is DACA. It's a phenomenal program. They think there's something like 690,000 right now who are currently enrolled in DACA. So Obama implemented that plan because he couldn't get immigration fully, so that was like his big thing. And we're seeing like a success rate of these kids of like 98% of going to college and graduating, and because they want to be here. And I think so they can do something right. But to me, it's always like for example, in the 90s when they tried to do universal health care and it couldn't pass. So then Hillary came in with the CHIP program, which was much smaller, that was getting insurance to children. And it works. It works brilliantly. I actually had it when I was a kid. And it still to this day is working brilliantly. And it never gets cut and it just stays in there. And it's great. So it's almost like they need to chip away for me in terms of immigration slowly in little pieces federally. And then, but at the same time, I think it's the president's job to say to the states, these are my guidelines. Just like everything. They don't have to listen to it, and they don't because of states' rights, of course. But if there's guidelines there saying this is what we're expecting from you guys, this is what, if we work together on this and show them if we work together, this can happen and this can be the success, then we can have success on getting out the bad guys. Yeah. But the whole thing with immigration with me, though, is very interesting, is that I don't think that politicians on either side want to admit that they don't want to give up their Maria who cleans their house under the table and gets paid under the table doesn't have to pay taxes on Maria, and you can pay her less because you're paying her under the table and take advantage of that. 90% of the 1% and 2% in this country have a Maria raising their child as a nanny, and majority of them are paying her under the table, and she's here. So you can take advantage. So if the system actually got fixed, they would become citizens, or they could legally work here, and those people wouldn't have that benefit.
There's a definite exploitation going on. Yeah. Absolutely. It's like an odd thing because those who are coming in and crossing illegally, they are aware of the exploitation, and they go along with it. They sign up for it, so to speak. And I don't mean that any sort of like justification, like, because they know it's happening. They're
willing
okay
to
with
sacrifice.
It. Exactly. They're willing to sacrifice. So they become part of this like system of exploitation that it's so hard to undo and unravel it.
Yeah. So Mexico pretty much has no government. It's run by the drug cartel. There's like 4 families now that went down from 6 that basically run everything, and they use children. They knock on their door and they say, "Oh, you're 8 years old. Go. You can come to America." And they transfer drugs and they use them, and so that's a very real thing.
Yeah.
So I always think Mexico's our biggest. They come in from Mexico. That's like our biggest. And I always think if they were a functioning country like Canada is, we don't have a bunch of Canadians trying to break into America. If they were a functioning country with a functioning government, then we wouldn't be having this problem. And I always say I just think it's so funny. We go into other countries and we take over their government and we kill their leaders that that's just a fact. It started under the Eisenhower administration. We just kept going with it. I think, how do we not take out the four families and allow Mexico to function so that they can be our ally? We could have real trade deals with them, because so many of them who come here don't actually want citizenship. They want to have a green card and they want to work here legally, so they can continue to send money back home, and then go back home when after they've saved so much money. That's their goal.
Right.
And that's why they're still so proud, Mexicans, when they come here and they're like, this is my culture, because they don't really want to leave that.
And as they should.
Right? I mean,
they should be, in general, there should be an allowance for people to go to other countries. It doesn't mean everybody, because, not everyone is fit for it, or by the country's, base standards. We don't want criminals, or just that's life. Not everybody gets to do everything.
Right.
But you should be able to come to another country, legally work and not have to, take on that country's citizenship.
Yeah.
There's something to be said that where a person hails from, their mother country, their ethnicity is of value to them. And you don't get to pit one country against the other, saying, "Oh, you want to come here, then you have to become American. You have to become this."
Yeah, and they want to, and I understand why they want to leave, because there's no government, there's nothing. They're run by a drug cartel. I mean, it's a third world country with resorts, is what I say Mexico is, and it's tragic. You see now Cancun, they have the big fences around all the resorts, and didn't used to be like that. And now the drug cartel has just completely taken over. And, if I was a mother in Mexico and I had a 10-year-old kid, I would be like, we're going to get you to America, because at least you have some type of opportunity.
Right.
And, so many of them who come over, they work nonstop. They live in homes with 10 people. They don't complain about it. They have all these different jobs, and they just they're constantly sending money back.
Right.
Constantly sending money back. And to me, it's just I think it's just so basic. Couldn't we just send the Navy SEALs in and take out these families? We do it all the time.
Right. Well, I know, part of the proposal in the bill is to spend a lot of money to help build up these corrupt countries.
Yeah, countries. Yeah. I mean, it goes on in other countries, obviously, like Colombia and things, but Mexico is
our
the one
more immediate.
67% of the undocumented immigrants come from Mexico, and they're crying out for help because their country is just, excuse my French, but a shithole right now with no functioning government. So of course you're going to take that chance, and and it's just, to me, there's a lot of bad people come through and a lot of the drug cartel, but at the same time, I have to say, does the government really want to get rid of the drug cartel and the drugs? And that's the other question here is,
I know, not to sound like, conspiracy theorists, but there is questions
and it's
like
both
this.
sides. I'm
100%.
not, 100% on that, because I think, do they really want, again, they want to get rid of the cheap labor, and do they want to get, rid of the drugs? Because drugs tend to keep people at bay and down in a lot of ways. And it affects not only the urban communities, but the rural communities, like Appalachian Mountains. I mean, meth is everything there. Yeah. Oxycontin is everything there. And it's coming from, most of it is coming from down south. So do they, since the war on drugs in the 70s, we've been this plethora of, do they really want to change it? Because I just look at it and I'm like, even the 1986 amnesty bill, he didn't go as far as he would have liked to gone, because a lot of the amendments got dropped in the Senate version, and he signs it into law, of course. But he wanted really, really strict regulations if you hire someone who's undocumented. And it is illegal to hire someone undocumented, but there's not a lot of repercussions for what happens to you if you. So I think we've never picked it up from since then. And we've just,
Right.
you
Well,
know,
on that last point, I think also if you think about the logistics of how does whatever law enforcement or agency go about identifying who in fact is hiring
yeah,
like that?
like undocumented, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone is.
Right.
Every restaurant has,
Yeah.
you know, busboys and,
Exactly.
you know, who are here. Yeah, how do you do
Right.
that?
And then you have to think about, you know, with such a crunch for money, is that the best way to spend funds?
Right.
And so it becomes like this, it becomes circular.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I definitely think there needs to be like prioritization.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be able to tackle all of it.
Right.
I think that personally, like money spent, I think should really be used on vetting, you know, those who are identified as having some kind of criminal record, but I mean violent or really injurious criminal record, and then getting on their case to get them out.
Right.
And really staying on top, which of course easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
Criminals are smart.
Right.
And to really stay on them and keep tabs that they cannot be allowed back in the country.
You know, and that was my whole thing with the wall and why I had the problem with the wall. It wasn't for me about the humanity and like all that like nonsense that liberals want to cry about. For me, it was like, this is stupid because they can make tunnels and they can get under with the drugs. Right. And no, I mean, like, I just thought like money-wise, like, this is just ridiculous because they're so smart. And I just think, like, if we really wanted to, like, I mean, you'd have to put a wall so deep in to stop them from building those tunnels. I mean, like, El Chapo, the biggest drug lord in, you know, down south, that's how he functioned, is tunnels. And, like, he gave us all that information. I just thought, this is just silly. This is performative to me. Like, I don't think that this is going to solve one way or the other, you know? And I saw all the footage of the wall as it is now, and it's like, they're still getting through. They're still able to get through in some ways. So it's like we're spending a lot of money, and if I'm going to spend that much money as a taxpayer, I want a result. And I don't want this performative behavior, and I feel like both sides give us constant performative behavior in an immigration because I don't really know if they really want to solve the real issues at hand.
I think I would agree with you as far as like their intentions, what really is their intentions. As far as the wall, we probably disagree on that, but I would... Getting to Israel, actually, talk about walls. You know, maybe America should look at what Israel has done. And I know that's also can be very controversial, but Israel really has had a history of trouble, of terrorism, and a lot of, you know, horrific, you know, savagery there. But they have constructed walls that have really worked. They also have an incredibly high level of intelligence that I don't see why America couldn't have. Right. And we probably do have a high level of intelligence. Right. We're also a much larger country. I think we don't necessarily face the more like imminent dangers that Israel does. Everything is like sort of on a back burner for America, where for Israel, it's immediate. When there's rockets coming in or you're neighboring all countries that hate your guts, basically, you know,
it's real.
It's real. It's a day-to-day real feeling where we don't have that day-to-day real feeling here. So I'm not opposed to a wall at all. I would actually probably support a wall, but smartly. So they have to target the drug cartels. You know, they have to look and vet and, you know, see the difference between the type of immigrants that are coming in. They, you know, need to like look at it as a whole approach. And I think that it's not just one thing. It's not one thing that's going to solve it.
I know.
And the bipartisanship is
it's
appalling.
Gone. Yeah, it's gone.
It's
but it left in the W. Bush era. That's when it really, well, the 90s was a rough time too, but the W. Bush era was really when it was like, nope, we're not even going to talk anymore. And then it's just progressively just gotten worse and worse. I mean, what happened under Obama, whether one likes him or not, but like Mitch McConnell saying, my number one goal is to make sure he only has one term. Like, that's you're the majority leader of the United States Senate. And it's the same thing with Trump. As much as I dislike Trump, to not even come to the table or not. And I get he's a difficult person to work with, and I get he stopped talking to people and all that. But I just think like, and now here we are, like, why do we think it's going to be any different?
Right.
It's just been this since the 90s when Bill Clinton got impeached for the BJ. Democrats thought we're going to get you back.
Right.
And then Democrats try to get them back. And now Republicans are like, no, we're going to get you back. And that's where we're at now.
Yeah.
And it's despicable.
Yeah. And it's like the politicians have honestly, in my opinion, it's like they've forgotten about the Americans.
Oh, yeah.
If they were to really go around and talk to average, everyday Americans, we all want both sides to work together.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, as much as I am a conservative, it's almost like I'm a conservative more about my values. It doesn't necessarily mean all my policies, if I were to write policy, would be conservative.
Yeah.
In the heart of me, I'm definitely more of a conservative. But as a conservative, one of my values is that you're accepting and you keep your ears open and your eyes open and you're willing to work with people. Yeah. It's never works if it's just one side all the time.
Never.
It doesn't work like that for any relationship.
No.
Whether it's parent-child, boyfriend-girlfriend, husband and wife, whatever, partners. It never works if one person is always right and always sticking it to the other person. You know what happens? The relationship crumbles.
Yeah.
And you're left with a broken home.
Yeah, exactly.
You're left with a broken country because they just can't, it's like they're so petty. And
it's interesting because for me, my whole goal of this show is the middle. And it has been since the beginning. And, I genuinely learned that from Hillary Clinton. To see her always reach out. And people on the right hate her, right? Clearly, she's like the witch in the room or whatever. But to see her be like, I don't care about any of that. I don't care that you don't like my husband. I don't care you like me. We have this in common. Let's get this passed in the Senate. And that's how she worked. And so to see that's just my whole thought process. And I get a lot of slack from people because they think that I'm too I'm understanding of the right or I'm understanding of the left. I'm not. And I don't care because I know when my country thrives. I look back on the Clinton era when he was going under impeachment and he was still meeting with Newt Gingrich. And Newt Gingrich was impeaching him. Yep. And they made deals happen at 9 o'clock at night to make this country thrive and work. That was the last time. And it wasn't just because of the Democrats. It was because of the Republicans, too. Right. So that's the last time. And ever since then, we've just been playing catch up and being nasty and I don't think it's black and white. I don't think politics is black and white. And what's going on across this country in real American homes is not a black and white issue.
No.
And it's not a political issue. They just want guidance and they want help. And that's where they're failing them. I hope we can do something with this immigration. I don't... I'm not the biggest Biden fan in the world. I think that he is, to me, not a leader. He's a follower to me. And, but he has a lot of people around him, and I don't know who's really calling the shots in a lot of ways. Some members of his cabinet I'm very excited about, and some I'm like, okay. But when it comes to the immigration thing, I think that it's going to end up in the back burner because he just has COVID. He has an economy that he's got to fix. Getting these kids back in school and that controversy and all of that, which is a state level thing, and it's a disaster, and the CDC is a disaster with it, and the teachers union is a disaster with it. So I think he's got a lot on his plate. So when he announced this and the timing of this, I think he's trying to make it clear that he doesn't really think that he can get, because he's got 2 years, and then we're up for, midterms.
Right. And chances are it's going to flip because it
always does.
It always does.
It always does. It did with Bill Clinton. It did with Barack Obama. It doesn't matter how great or bad you're doing. The country, that's the one good thing. Country always balances itself out.
And, I think these politicians should actually learn from something like that. We'll see what happens in 2 years with the elections. That should really show these politicians that the American people want the middle ground.
Yep.
They don't want just right or just left.
I think that there should be
in the middle.
Here's historians inside the White House, honest to God, to just be like, this is what happened. To remind them just on everything. I think because there's a lot of things that I'm like, okay, you can make a mistake here, you can make a misstep here. And I think historians are really bright and they tell a lot. Politics is so simple. It's so simple. It's just repetitive over and over. It's just this happens, then this happens, then this happens. Right. It's just so repetitive. So I think having a historian of being like, but I think when it comes to immigration, I think that the biggest thing he'll do is DACA and verifying DACA because Obama signed it in an executive order, and so that can be overturned at any time. And so I think that probably will be his one little thing, and then maybe something else small. But
and I think, I mean, like you said, like DACA works.
Yeah.
And it's working because it's a small chunk. If they kind of, like, I think you were right before about saying, like, if you break things down to bite size, make them their own, instead of these big sweeping reforms,
those never
take
work.
it like a little bite size at a time.
Yeah. I think that DACA will be his one thing because it does have a success rate. And Trump didn't touch it for a reason. He sent it to the Supreme Court, but he knew that it wasn't gonna flip, so he didn't touch it because he reversed everything else, executive order wise, which they all do. But I do think he'll make DACA the law of the land, which is great because it actually functions and it works properly and doesn't cost the taxpayers next to nothing actually. So, hopefully that'll be the key, because beyond that, I can't see him getting much more accomplished than that in 2 years. Because you got to remember, like, Congress takes 50 breaks in a session. So, like, I say all the time, it's like the dream job to be a senator. You don't have to be there to vote. You're not required to write laws. You're not required to do it. You just, you can show up whenever you want. And
I mean, there needs to be one of these documentaries, like an expose, not nasty.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean nasty. Into the life of Congress.
Yeah.
Let's see.
The real life of Congress, behind the scenes, because let me tell you, it's not,
like they've got the real housewives. We need like the real House and Senate.
House and Senate.
That's
totally.
what we need.
Yeah, because it's, if people knew, like, when they, like, created the Senate, our forefathers, they didn't think we were going to have to require these people to show up to vote because,
and I think that's because when they came up with it, they were coming from a place of that thirst and hunger to have a vote, to have representation.
And they never thought they'd be lazy.
They never thought that it would be taken for granted.
Yeah, no, I know. It's, it's crazy.
How quickly they forget, because we are a young country.
So young. I say that constantly. I say every 50 years, because we're so young, we go through growing pains. And we go through a big, like, transformation. Like, 50 years ago was the civil rights movement. 50 that, we go through big, because we're so young and we're learning so much.
Right.
And we're like the big man on campus, and we think like we're so cool, but it's like, no, guys, we're still like in high school, and everyone's like, in graduate, master's, doctorate program, and we're just like in high school, you know? So that's something that a lot of people forget. We have a lot of growing pains, and we have a lot of learning to do.
We do. And we still are sort of, if you compare like our government to the other governments around the world, we're almost like we're still in part of this experiment.
Oh yeah, totally.
We're still
democracy,
like experimental. And there's
experimental.
no other country that has our system, which is unusual. I don't mean to say that it means that we don't have a good system. I actually think we have the best system, potentially to be the best. I think that there's a lot of flaws because humans are flawed. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, humans are deeply flawed. And that's why. But you're right. There's no one else like us. There's other copycats that try to do what we do, but they don't have what we have.
Right. I mean, we literally, and I still truly believe this in my heart, we are the greatest country. We're the greatest nation on this planet.
Agreed.
It is no wonder they want to come to our country.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. I understand it fully.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I feel so blessed to have been born here.
Me too.
And have citizenship here.
I'm the same way.
I mean,
completely.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I say even on her worst day,
still the
man,
best.
She's beautiful. Listen, I just think that it's a bigger conversation that no one is willing to have, and everyone's afraid to talk to each other anymore, and everyone's afraid to reach out and talk to someone who thinks differently than them, and I think that is key to everything. And that is something I also genuinely learned from Hillary Clinton, is like, no, you need to find the things that you have in common and thread that to build a friendship and then go from there. But I want to switch it up before you go, of course. I want to talk about, because the one thing we do have in common is our deep, deep love for all things Law and Order.
Yes.
For me, it's specifically Law and Order SVU. But
Absolutely.
For you, it's the whole
thing. But my like number one is
every
SVU.
time I come for Friday night dinner, I'm like, did you see the latest episode? Did you see? I mean,
it brings me so much like joy in my life,
me
and
too.
I think only like a true like Law and Order fan understands that.
And there's a lot of us.
There are
because it's 24 seasons now she's been on, right?
There are a lot of us.
Yeah.
I catch an episode or just even portions of an episode of Law and Order, I would say almost every single day.
Yeah.
And this has been for the last literally 15 years or so. I mean, if not longer, basically since like practically the beginning, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just love it. I just absolutely love it. It doesn't matter that I've seen episodes multiple times.
I know, isn't that weird? Because it's like
and
a
that's
crime.
what tells you what an amazing show it is. So well written, the characters. You just love the characters.
Everything.
Mariska's everything.
As long as she's there,
Yes.
the other characters. I mean, I love Ice-T, and he's been on there
he's
the
awesome.
longest now. But all the other, I mean, I like Rollins, I like them, but they can come and go as long as she is there. And apparently that's what Dick Wolf has said before they got this big 4-year extension, which is unheard of in that business, by the way. He said, as long as Mariska is down, I'm down.
Yeah.
But the second she's done, we have to be done. Because
Well, I had read an interview with her. I forget where it was, where she said that she is so grateful and so appreciative. Like, if they want her, she's still there, which was like amazing because it's like almost like an inverse game of chicken. Like, we're not shutting down if you're on board. And she's like, well, I'm not going anywhere if you're on board. So
she
great.
She directs episodes now. She's the executive producer. Not a
brilliant.
producer, but an executive producer. Girlfriend's making like rules on that set. Yeah. Like, she is the most amazing, fantastic person. I mean, honestly, her character of Olivia Benson, I did a segment on this one time. I wish that there was like an Olivia Benson in real life for all like rape victims and you know what I mean? Like, because she just did you watch the latest episode?
I did.
Well, it was what happened this week? It was now I can't think of it. I just watched it the other night. Noah wasn't in it. So
it was. I'll tell you what it was. It's when the crossover with the Bronx. The Bronx.
Oh, right. Those people were, it was like...
with Annabella Sciorra was in it, yes.
I knew that the guy was bad from the
Me
second
too. I said, something's up with this dude.
Me too. Mm-mm. I was like, wait a second here. This is not... I was like, he's doing like copycat rapes or something. This is too weird.
I felt it right away.
That was weird. That's right. Yeah. But what was the actress who was the captain, the other actress?
Annabella Sciorra.
She was one of the first Harvey Weinstein girls to come out. And her whole career was ruined.
Yes.
So I was happy to see her on there. And, but they're apparently using on Law & Order SVU only Broadway actors because all the Broadway shut down. So I think that that's amazing. And it's just everything about the show is just, I mean, just keep them coming, Mariska.
I know. I feel the same way.
I mean, to say they got an extension for 4 more years, I mean, that is like, they don't do that in the business. They do 1 season, maybe 2 tops at a time.
Right. They're not big into commitment.
No. And they're like, we're committed to you, girl. Like, you know, and we'll see if Stabler will be, organized crime, We'll see. I mean, I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
I'm excited he's back. I mean, I did not expect him to ever come back.
I also didn't. I don't think he expected.
No, I don't think he did. He tried a lot of other stuff, but it just didn't work out so well. So... and I also think that part of him thought the show wouldn't do well without him because it was at that time.
Because they were really such a pair.
But I think the best thing he did was leave because she became such a whole different entity. She was able to be free and now she's captain. Like,
she was able to really grow. But I remember like those episodes when he left. I will admit this. I was crying.
No, I was too.
I was crying. I could not believe that this was happening.
When he wouldn't answer the phone, and I was like, hello. So that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
How, like, all of a sudden he's back because he retired, I thought.
They're going to have to deal with
the issue. That. Like, there's an issue there.
Right.
Like, he just left her high and dry.
Right. It was abandonment.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It was completely abandonment. And then we got stuck with stupid Noah. Like, honestly.
Right. Oh, gosh. Don't get me started, Noah.
He's the most annoying kid on earth.
I know. My gosh.
From, like, baby on. He's just annoying.
I know. You know what happens? I think sometimes when they, like, write these kids into the storyline, they're always precocious. Mm-hmm. Not every child is, a whiz. This precocious, like early, talking and.
But all I can say is,
mature.
I know what they're doing with him. I know what they're doing with him with his whole like, I don't want to play baseball. I want to dance. I'm like, I've seen this before on another TV show, Major Crimes.
Yep.
And it did not work out well. So please don't do this. Don't. If he's gay, then let him be gay. Like, who
right.
cares?
It doesn't need to be pushed on anyone. I don't think most people actually care.
No, not at this point.
Not
That's
at this point in
I
life.
say it's the 1980s are over with.
Right.
You know
this
what
isn't
I mean?
an after-school special.
You know, there's still issues with that, but it's not that. It's not accepting or, it's not an after-school special. Yeah. And that's what they're doing with him. And I'm like, really? And he's so annoying.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I don't like him.
And the way he talks to her, like when that whole really great episode recently when she arrested the black guy and it was this big, controversy. Yes. Which I thought they handled it so beautifully. And they always cover every angle. And, Rollins, who's more conservative, is like, I love it. But I hope she gets a boyfriend this season. That's all I'm going to say. Because everyone else has a love interest now. Even Ice-T all of a sudden randomly got engaged. I was like, where did that come from? But, and Rollins and what's his name were totally, which I like. I like Rollins a lot. Yeah. I think that she adds a lot to the show, and I think that she adds like a more like Southern conservative kind of voice in, and I really like that. I think that that's why the show does so well, is they cover every base.
They do.
And
I remember Rollins when the first time she was on any Law and Order, she was a part of the suspect criminal, actually. I remember.
That's so funny. That's like, what was the redheaded DA that we had for a while? No, we're not. What was her name?
Oh gosh, yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Not Stephanie March, but the other one.
No, after that.
She did
Neil. Her last name is Neil.
Dana Neil.
Diane Neil. Yes.
She did an episode early on where she was also the bad one.
Yeah.
She was like, she had raped a guy, actually.
Right.
It was like, he was like a stripper. It was like season 1. Yeah. Yes. She was on that, and they must have liked her.
Well, you see that they do that in Law and Order, and I actually like that because, obviously with movies and TV shows, whatever, there's a suspension of reality, obviously. Yeah. But it's actually kind of fun the way Law and Order does it because you're obviously suspending reality because you're watching, a made-up story, essentially. Right. But then you have to suspend reality when you see a character who has appeared before in a completely different light as a different character, and you're like, wait a minute. Yeah. That guy was like, did a B&E, a couple years ago. Now he's as an attorney or something, you know? Yeah. No, but I think it's fun. I think there's like a strange intimacy there within Law and Order.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think it's a brilliant show, and I say keep bringing on. There's the endless cases too, so it's like it never stops, and there's always something going on. And I love it's always like based on reality, but they switch it enough. Like they did the Arnold Schwarzenegger story, but they totally switched that story, and the kid like died. Remember, he had choked on the rocks or whatever. It's totally Arnold Schwarzenegger story. But talk about looking old. Arnold Schwarzenegger looks really old. I saw him on like Twitter or something the other day, and I was like, wow, he looks really old.
Yeah, I actually opened up a story on like Daily Mail today. Him, they had pictures of him bike riding with his girlfriend, long-term girlfriend. I didn't even know he had a girlfriend.
They're still married because Maria Shriver's so Catholic
that she won't divorce.
Oh, wow. You know those Kennedy Catholics? Yes. They'll like let their husbands do whatever, but like Ted Kennedy killed a woman and like
and it's
they're still like
as long as they're at mass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they're still legally married, and
I didn't even know that.
That was a weird couple too, Maria Shriver and Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was definitely like a political move by him. Yeah. Even though he's a Republican.
I don't understand that. I mean, I guess, your motivations are different, but I don't know. When I think about a relationship, a marriage, I want to be with someone that I want to be with.
Yeah,
this is my life.
I know. Maybe that's why we're not politicians, Dena. Because
I guess so.
You have to worry about those things because it's definitely like he maneuvered that. He was a Republican and he was in California, and the Shriver Kennedy name was there, because, but yeah, they're still married, legally married. Yeah, he's been with his girlfriend for a long time, so, but he looks really old. He looks really, really old.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, he used to come in when I worked at the Beverly Hiltons in the summer. One summer I worked there. I was like a poolside server, and he came in and he was governor. So it was like Secret Service and all, all that, and, he had his cigar, and it was just like everything you would think Arnold Schwarzenegger would be. But the funny part is he came in the back door. It's like this back gate thing, which is where all the employees came in. And I was going out there for something, or I was about to go out there for something, and because there's like a side bathroom there, and I think that's what I was doing. And I almost like ran into him, and it was like, whoa, like it's Arnold,
Well, he must have such a presence, like
Yeah.
physical presence.
Yeah. He used to go there all the time, the Beverly Hills, which is like very old school Hollywood.
Yeah.
You know, more than the Beverly Hills Hotel even. But all types of different people used to go. Debbie Reynolds, I met Debbie Reynolds there, and all very old Hollywood. Anyways, well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you
hope
for
you
having me. Yes.
It was
Had
a good
great
conversation.
time.
But honestly, anytime you want to come back, and then next time we'll be in the new office.
Awesome.
I'll have stuff on the walls, and
Great.
it'll be great. So thank you so much, Dena.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Okay, guys, make sure you check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you want to listen to us, you can listen on Spotify, iTunes, or if you want to watch us, of course, on YouTube. Make sure you push that little subscribe button. Until next time, the OG of the HRC signing out.